Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Vocational Education and Training, SOVET, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Science, Information Security, MSCIS, Semester 4, MSc 033 Web Application Testing and Audit, Block 1 Web Fundamentals and its Security, Unit 2 Overview of Web Authentication Technologies, Overview of Web Authentication Technologies. 1.1 Introduction to Authentication. Authentication is the process of identifying a user based on previously registered credentials provided by the user. This is done to ensure the integrity and security of the data by controlling its accessibility based on the identification of the user. This is often carried out by asking requesting users to create an ID and a password when joining a website or a service. Web authentication is the process of registering and verifying a user with the help of recognized authenticators such as phones, secure keys, or other cryptography aided methods. The new web authentication technology is highly derivative or a relatively older technology known as UAF or Universal Authentication Factor. Developed in 2014, the UAF aimed to serve a similar purpose but failed to attract a lot of attention to its cause at the time. As a result, UAF never received the required native support from browsers and operating systems, thus resulting in its downfall. Fortunately, the new web authentication does not face any such issues at the moment. 1.2 Why is user authentication important? User authentication refers to the security process of identifying who the user is. User authentication is extremely important in the modern day scenario as it is the most crucial step in protecting important and sensitive data from unauthorized users. With an increase in usage of the internet and the amount of data being stored and circulated online, we have observed a natural increase in the amount of cybercriminal activities as well. Even multinational companies like Yahoo and Adobe have fallen victim to such data breaches. This resulted in the private user data of thousands of users being exposed. Thus, in order to prevent major mishaps like these and run a service smoothly and securely, it is imperative that companies incorporate proper user authentication and other security measures when developing their products. 1.3 Why is website authentication important? Website authentication is the process of allowing users to verify their identity's credentials for gaining access into their own accounts. This process occurs behind the scenes every time a user proceeds to log into their profile on any website, software, or service. Ensuring top-tier security is a must in order to run an efficient and user-friendly website for any corporation. If the authentication process is lacking in any way whatsoever, it can leave the sensitive information users exposed to outside threats. This can not only harm the users in multiple ways but also ruin the organization's reputation. Thus, a well-designed user interface combined with a secure backend algorithm helps develop an attractive, easy-to-use and safe user authentication page. 1.4 How does web authentication work? The traditional method of authentication was verification of username-password pair, treated as user identity. It has been around for decades despite there being new and modern, personalized hardware and biometric-based schemes. Most of these authentication methods are designed for end users to be performed through web browsers. Thus, web browsers is the main area of concern between user credentials and web applications sent to major platforms, desktop and mobile. Figure 1. User agent. A user agent, usually a web browser, handles all communication shown in the above diagram. The authenticator creates a new set of credentials during the process of registration. The relying party receives the public part of the generated credential for storage purposes. These credentials are later used by the relying party to verify the identity of the user when needed. Figure 2. User authentication. During authentication, The relying party simply compares the credentials being sent to it. Using this method, the system can verify the user's identity by verifying if the user is having the right credentials or not. Grammatical errors making it unclear and flow of text doesn't come out well. Figure 3. Authentication using public key cryptography. Public key cryptography helps both these processes run smoothly. In public key cryptography, each user is having a public key private key pair, which are mathematically related. Private key is used to generate the digital signature, and at receiving end, verification of digital signature is done using corresponding public key. For a public key private key pair, signature generated by using other private keys can not be verified by this public key. The verifying party can have copy of public key in its database, which can be used to verify digital signature generated using related private key. 1.5 Different ways to authenticate a web application. 1.5.1 Local authentication. When a website, software, or system implements an in-house mode of authentication, where users create IDs and passwords that are particular to the organization under consideration, it is known as local authentication. Here, no form of OAuth APIs created by other websites such as Google, Facebook, etc. are used. Often, this form of authentication is also known as first-party authentication. 1.5.2 Single-factor primary authentication. Authentication methods where the users are only required to present one form of identity proof are known as single-factor or primary authentication methods. Username and password-based login methods have been the most predominant form of single-factor authentication for over a decade now. The authentication factors often belong to one of the three classes: knowledge, possession, or biometric. Knowledge-based factors are often based upon personal information like a password or PIN. Possession-based factors are also similar and pertain to something the user has, such as a smartphone or a token. Biometric factors refer to something you are, i.e. a fingerprint, a facial scan, etc. Continuous authentication is one of the new and emerging one-factor authentication. It keeps on compiling the contextual information which is derived from knowledge and possession. In addition to device information such as geolocation. 1.5.3 Second-factor authentication. Second-factor authentication or dual-factor authentication is the authentication methodology where a user is required to provide two different factors for the purpose of user identification and verification. Two-factor authentication methods are often better and more secure than single-factor authentication, which usually uses a single passcode. Adding the extra private factor not only ensures the security of the user's credentials but also the information they are trying to access using those credentials. Popular second-factor authentication methods often rely on the user creating a password, followed by a security token or a biometric entity. This additional layer of security to the process makes it extremely difficult for unauthorized users to gain access to a person's account, device, or sensitive information of any kind. The second layer also provides a good failsafe or fallback option in case the first passcode is cracked or exposed in some manner. 1.5.4 Single sign-on. Single sign-on (SSO) is designed as a service to implement the secure login process effectively. Using single sign-on services, user is granted access to multiple network destinations by authenticating only once using single login and password. This simplifies the login process and adds additional layer of security by reducing the likelihood of error. If, for example, a user typically accesses 5 applications during a work session, user need to go through 5 login routines, and this increases the chances of errors and consumes time. However, while SSO enhances ease of access, it also presents some security risks. SSO service authenticates the user to grant access for multiple applications and require no addition action while using the applications or switching between applications. The application server can interact with the dedicated SSO policy server to gather the user's credentials and checks the person against a user directory. A trust is established between the application service provider and an identity provider which facilitates the single sign-on feature. The trust relationship is usually established by the exchange of digital certificates between the identity provider and the service provider. This certificate is used to digitally sign information about the user's identity that is sent from the identity provider to the service provider. By verifying this signed content, the service provider can be sure it came from a trustworthy source. In SSO, this identity information is known as token. Token consists of some bit pattern, known as identifying bits for a user just like user's email ID or username. Advantages of SSO: reduces password fatigue. Users need to remember only one password instead of remembering multiple login IDs and passwords, one for each application, making the user's lives easier. It gives users greater incentive to use very strong passwords, simplifies user credential management. When a user leaves organization and other person joins, or responsibilities are transferred from one person to another, SSO reduces the chances of mistakes and also reduces the IT efforts, improves identity protection. With SSO, organizations can strengthen its identity security with implementation of more secure techniques of authentication such as two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication, increases the speed where it is most needed in organizations such as hospitals, emergency services, and transport industries where large numbers of people and departments demand rapid and unfettered access to the same applications. SSO is especially helpful. In such cases, preventing errors and malware intrusion can be the difference between life and death. Relieves help desk workloads, chances of lost passwords are reduced, thus reducing number of calls to help desk for password recovery. Reduces security risks for stakeholders. Organizations need connections with many stakeholders and this leads to the security vulnerabilities. SSO can surely reduce these vulnerabilities. Effective SSO solutions are available. Organization can develop their own SSO services or use available SSO solution in the market. Many effective SSO services are currently available at reasonable cost. SSO's challenges: enforcing use of extra strong passwords. If an SSO credentials are compromised, many applications come under threat. As single-user credentials are being used for multiple application, system need to ensure use of extra strong passwords. Breakdown in SSO services affects all applications. Great care need to be taken to make SSO services exceptionally reliable and backup plans should be in place. If a hacker breaches your SSO service provider's account, all the linked applications could be open to attack. SSO setup time may be longer than expected. Each application environment is different, so setting up SSO services may crop up and consume time. SSO is risky for multi-user computers. Many risks are involved when single computer is used by multiple persons. SSO using social networking services can create conflict. Some organizations have policy for blocking social media sites. If you decide to use social media SSO services, there will be conflicts in policies. Some SSO-linked sites may pass their user databases to third-party entities. This is an area requiring careful attention. 1.5.5 Multi-factor authentication. Authentication methods that require more than one authentication factor in order to log into a user account are known as multi-factor authentication, MFA. Multi-factor authentication is one of the core components required for a strong identity and access management policy. IAM. MFA reduces the probability of unauthorized access by adding additional layers of security on top of the traditional username password based authentication method. One of the most common authentication factors of MFA is a one time password or an OTP. OTPs are 4 to 8 digit pins generated randomly or based on some algorithm derived from a private key assigned to the user's ID during registration. Time-related factors may also come into play when generating OTPs. Either way, these seemingly random set of digits are often used as an additional authentication factor by many service providers. 1.5.6 Cookie-based authentication. Cookie-based authentication methods are ones that use HTTP cookies as authentication factors. These cookies help authenticate client requests and maintain session information on the stateless HTTP protocol. A cookie is a small piece of data created by a server and sent to the user's local browser via a website. Browsers often store these cookies and send them back to let the website know that the request is coming from the same browser to keep the user constantly authenticated. Cookies can also be seen as key-value pairs. 1.5.7 Token-based authentication. Token-based authentication is an authentication method based on the generation of encrypted security tokens. These unique tokens help verify the identity of the user in front of the website, who further generates encrypted authentication tokens. This token provides access to all information meant for an authorized user to access for a limited amount of time. 1.6 Most common authentication protocols. 1.6.1 Password Authentication Protocol, PAP. Password Authentication Protocol, PAP, is used to validate users in point-to-point links. PAP authentication requires that the username and password are entered by the calling device. Once the credentials are matched with the credentials stored in the local database of the call device or a remote authentication, authorization, and accounting (AA) database, then user is granted access to use services applications. All network operating systems support PAP. Usually password traverses in clear plain text. PAP uses two-way handshake protocol and can support both unidirectional, one-way, authentication as well as bidirectional, two-way, authentication. There exists a small topology containing two routers, namely R1 and R2, with IP addresses R1 10.1.1.1/30 and R2 10.1.1.2/30. Firstly, a local database containing username and password is created on R1 config #username router 1 password tim at 123456. Similarly, in case of R2 config #username router to password tim at 123456. Note that HDLC is configured by default on Cisco routers, and to change it to PPP encapsulation mode and enable PPP, following commands are used: R1 config #ints00, R1 configif #encapsulation PPP, R1 configif #PPP authentication PAP. R1 configif #PPP PAP sent username router to password tim at 123456, enabling PAP on R2 config #ints00, R2 configif #encapsulation PPP, R2 configif #PPP authentication PAP, R2 configif #PPP PAP sent username router 1 password tim at 123456. Both username and password are case sensitive here, and we have to assign a username and password on router R1. 1.6.2 Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP. LDAP is a software-based protocol that allows anybody to find organizations, individuals, and other resources in a network, such as files and devices, whether on the public internet or a corporate intranet. It's fair to say that LDAP has grown in popularity. It was the foundation upon which Microsoft built Active Directory. It has played a vital role in developing today's cloud-based directory services, also known as Directories as a Service. LDAP communicates between servers and client applications, and messages might range everything from client queries to data formatting. In terms of functionality, LDAP binds an LDAP user to an LDAP server. The client issues an operation request, which requests a specific set of data, such as user login credentials or other organizational information. After that, the LDAP server executes the query using its internal language, talks with directory services if necessary, and answers. When the client receives the response, it disconnects from the server and starts processing the data. 1.6.3 Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, CHAP. The Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, CHAP, is based on concept of identity checking for point-to-point protocol. CHAP periodically performs the user authentication during entire duration of a session. When properly implemented, CHAP is resistant to replay attacks and provides better security than the Password Authentication Protocol, PAP. CHAP is not dependent upon transmitting neutral secrets between the service and user requesting access. It works by establishing a shared secret to access a service. User requesting access to the service initially perform a cryptographic handshake. Subsequently, some challenges are sent from the service to the requestinger, allowing them to re-authenticate it during the same session. Each subsequent challenge is incrementally different from previous one, making replay attacks infeasible. CHAP uses three-way handshaking protocol. Initially, a challenge packet is sent by the authenticator to the peer entity. In response, the peer applies a one-way hash function to generate a hashed value of the received challenge and transmits it back to the authenticator. The received hash value is matched with the computed hash value at authenticator end. If the match is successful, then the authentication is acknowledged, otherwise, requested connection is terminated. One-way hash function MD5 is used by CHAP. It performs periodic authentication to ensure that the communication is being done with the same device or not. CHAP gives better security compared to PAP as the challenge value used by CHAP is generated using a hash function, thus it is different each time authentication is performed. There are 4 types of CHAP packets. Challenge packet. This is the authenticator's first packet to the peer entity. The authenticator sends a similar challenge packet periodically to check if the existing connection has been tampered with. The packet consists of an identifier value, a value field containing a random number, a name field containing the authenticator identifier is formed. The password is looked up using the name field. The name field is also supplied into the MD5 hash generator, which generates a one-way hash value response packet. The peer sends this packet in response to the authenticator's challenge packet. It contains the value field, a one-way hash value, an identifier value, and the name field. The name field of this response packet contains the peer's host name. The password is found in the name field of the challenge packet and hashed using the MD5 one-way hash function. The generated hash value is included in the response packet's value field and forwarded to the authenticator success packet. After receiving the response packet, the authenticator performs the similar task of looking up the name field for the username and generating hash value using same MD5 hash function. A success packet is sent to peer if this computed hash value matches with the hash value in response packet received. Failure packet. If the hash value generated by the peer varies, the failure packet is sent to the peer. To demonstrate this, we can make use of a connection with 2 routers. Router 1 having IP addresses of router 1 and router 2 are 10.1.1.1/30 and 10.1.1.2/30 respectively. HDLC is configured by default on Cisco routers, so we must alter the encapsulation to PPP. Configure R1, router 1, config, #INTS00, router 1, config if, #encapsulation PPP, configure R2, router 2, config, #INTS00, router 2, config if, #encapsulation PPP, change hostname of both routers. Router 1, config, #hostname R1, router 2, config, #hostname R2, provide username and password one by one. R1, config, #username R2, password Tim at 123456. R2, config, #username R1, password Tim at 123456. 1.6.4 Extensible Authentication Protocol, EAP, another authentication protocol widely used in local area networks, LANs, and dial-up connections is the Extensible Authentication Protocol, EAP. For authentication between clients and a wireless LAN, EAP is primarily used in wireless networks. EAP offers a number of authentication procedures as a point-to-point, P2P, LAN data transmission architecture, including one-time passwords, OTPs, smart card use, public key, cryptography authentication, and digital certificates. The wireless network, which uses wireless access points, is a significant emphasis of EAP. It's used to perform authentication between wireless LAN systems and clients. The following is how a simple EAP authentication works. The client requests a wireless connection with the help of a transceiver. After then, the transceiver receives client data and passes it to the authenticator, which processes it. The authenticator requests the transceiver's client ID and, once received, delivers a message to the client requesting the client ID. The authenticator sends the client ID to the server after verifying it. 1.6.5 OpenID Auth. OAuth is an open standard authorization system that lets apps have limited access to user accounts on HTTP services like Facebook, GitHub, and DigitalOcean. This accessibility is called Secure Designated Access. For example, you can gain access to some server website, say www.espn.in, using your Facebook identity. You only need to tell Facebook to permit use of your identity for that website. ESPN may update your Facebook timeline without requiring your Facebook credentials. This significantly reduces the risk your Facebook password is safe even if ESPN suffers a security breach. The basic steps in the authorization process are as follows. 1. The application asks the user for authorization to access service resources. 2. The application receives an authorization grant if the user authorizes it. 3. The application asks the authorization server for an access token, API. This is accomplished by displaying its identity as well as the authorization grant. 4. The API provides the application with an access token if the application's identification is verified and the authorization grant is valid. The authorization process is now complete. 5. The application requests the resource from the API and presents the access token for authentication. 6. The API serves the resource to the application if the access token is legitimate. OAuth does not share password information, instead relying on authorized tokens to verify a user's identification with the service provider. OAuth is an authentication mechanism that allows you to enable one application to interact with another on your behalf without exposing your password. 1.6.6 Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML. SAML, Security Assertion Markup Language, is another open standard that allows identity providers to provide authorization credentials to service providers, SP. This implies you can log in to many websites with a single set of credentials. It's considerably easier to manage a single login per user than handle several logins to email, CRM software, Active Directory, and other systems for standardized interactions between the identity provider and service providers, SAML. Transactions utilize extensible markup language, XML. SAML is the link between a user's identity verification and their authorization to use a service. SAML simplifies federated authentication and authorization processes for users, identity providers, and service providers. SAML provides a solution to allow your identity provider and service providers to exist separately, centralizing user management and providing access to SaaS solutions. SAML is a safe way for identity providers and service providers to exchange user authentications and authorizations. When a user logs into a SAML-enabled application, the service provider asks the appropriate identity provider for authorization. The identity provider verifies the user's credentials before returning the user's authorization to the service provider, allowing the user to use the application. The process of authenticating a user's identity and credentials is known as SAML authentication, password, two-factor authentication, etc. SAML authorization instructs the service provider on what level of access the authorized user should have. The following is a list of typical steps in the authentication process. 1. The user clicks on a link on an intranet or equivalent to access a remote program, and the application loads. 2. The application determines the user's origin by application subdomain, user, IP address, or similar. It redirects the user back to the identity provider, where he or she is asked to authenticate. 3. The user either has an active browser session with the identity provider or creates one by logging in. 4. The identity provider creates an XML document including the user's username or email address as part of the authentication response. After that, an X.509 certificate is used to sign the document, which is subsequently sent to the service provider. 5. The authentication response is retrieved and validated using the certificate fingerprint by the service provider, who already knows the identity provider and has a certificate fingerprint. 1.6.7 Radius. Radius stands for Remote Authentication Dial-in User Service, and it is a networking protocol that provides centralized authentication, authorization, and accounting AA or AAA for users who connect to and use a network service. Radius authentication begins when a user seeks access to a network resource through the Remote Access Server (RAS). User submits a username and password, which are encrypted before being sent via the authentication procedure by the Radius server. Then the Radius server checks the accuracy of the information by employing authentication schemes to verify the data. This is done by comparing the user-provided information against a locally stored database or referring to external sources such as Active Directory servers. The Radius server will then accept, challenge, or deny the user's request. Restricted access can be offered to individual users without affecting other users. In the event of a challenge, the Radius server will ask the user for extra information, such as a PIN or a secondary password, to validate their user ID. In the event of a rejection, the user is denied access to the Radius protocol indefinitely. 1.6.8 Kerberos. Kerberos is an authentication protocol for networks. It uses secret key cryptography to enable strong authentication for client-server applications. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology provides a free implementation of this protocol. Kerberos is also accessible in a variety of commercial solutions. The following are the most fundamental procedures for authenticating in a Kerberos environment. 1. The client asks the Key Distribution Center for an authentication ticket, TGT, KDC. 2. After verifying the credentials, the KDC returns an encrypted TGT and session key. 3. A client wants access to a server-side application. The KDC receives a ticket request for the application server, including the client's TGT and an authenticator. 4. The KDC issues the user a ticket as well as a session key. 5. The ticket is received by the application server. After receiving the ticket and authenticator, the server can authenticate the client. The server responds with a new authenticator to the client. The client can authenticate the server after obtaining this authenticator. 1.7 Summary: Identifying a user to ensure integrity and security of data and applications by controlling the access to the data and services. For web applications, users are allowed to register and create their account for gaining access to various data and web services. The simplest way of authentication is password-based authentication. Other authentication methods include challenge response-based authentication, second-factor authentication, single sign-on, SSO, multi-factor authentication, token-based and cookie-based authentication. Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP, is a password-based protocol to protect files and devices. Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, CHAP, is a popular handshake-based protocol used for verifying user identity in point-to-point scenario. Extensible Authentication Protocol, EAP, is widely used for LANs, wireless networks and dial-up connections. OpenID Auth is an open standard authorization system that is used for web applications to limit the access to user accounts on HTTP services like Facebook, GitHub, etc. One can gain access to some server web application using your Facebook identity by permitting Facebook to use your identity. Another open standard is Security Assertion Markup Language, SAML, that allows identity provider to provide authorization credentials to service provider, SP. This way one can log in to many websites with a single set of credentials. Radius, Remote Authentication Dial-in Service, is a networking protocol providing centralized authentication, authorization and accounting, AA, for users. Kerberos is a popular authentication protocol for networks. It involves an authentication server to authenticate once for multiple services and later interacts with a ticket-granting server for distributing short validity tickets to authenticated users for various servers and services. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.